When Karen Reed shows up to court, she receives a hero's welcome. There are women and men dressed in pink cheering her on. 200 feet away from the courthouse, there are supporters carrying signs, wearing buttons, protesting the prosecution of a woman accused of murdering a Boston police officer, her boyfriend, John O'Keefe. Prosecutors say Karen Reed, in a fit of jealous rage, put her car in reverse and struck John O'Keefe on purpose, then left the scene as he died in the cold. Tonight, we are live from Blue Ribbon Barbecue in Dedham, Massachusetts, as our coverage of the Karen Reed murder trial continues. Today, we went to Canton to retrace the steps of Karen and John. And tonight, we look at what prosecutors say happened, and we'll bring in our own experts to see if it makes sense. Then, we'll examine the disputed Google search evidence and the broken taillight evidence as we continue our investigation of the tragic death of Officer John O'Keefe. I'm Vinny Politan. We are live at Blue Ribbon Barbecue, downtown Dedham, Massachusetts, where Karen Reed is on trial for the murder of her boyfriend, John O'Keefe. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We have a lot to get to in this program, but let's start and go back to that night. It was a snowy night. There was a storm coming in, and people were preparing for it. It was a Friday night, so I think most folks in the neighborhood knew that it was going to be a slow weekend. There weren't going to be many activities, so on Friday night, you could go out. You could enjoy yourself. And that's exactly what Officer John O'Keefe was doing with his girlfriend, Karen Reed. They were doing a little bit of bar hopping in downtown Canton. And during the night, they spent a couple hours in one place, some time in another place, and that's where things changed, and changed dramatically. But what exactly happened that night is what this trial is about, because you have two sides saying two completely different things. You've got prosecutors saying murder, and you have a defendant who says, I'm innocent, I didn't do it, and the people who are accusing me of murder are the ones who did it and are framing me. So there is a lot at stake here, and there's a division in this town. There's a division in that courtroom. So after the bar hopping, that's where they end up at the Alberts home. And there's an after party going on from people who were hanging out that night in downtown Canton. The following morning is when John O'Keefe is found buried in that snowstorm. So the snow started in the overnight, and when John O'Keefe was found, the snow started to pile up, about 6 inches of snow that morning. And that contributed to his death. Whatever caused those injuries, plus being left out in the snow to die. Whoever did it, whoever is responsible for it. And that's really the question. Like, how did it happen? How did it happen? How does Officer John O'Keefe go from enjoying a night off from not serving and protecting the people of Boston as an officer, but enjoying some time with his girlfriend, with friends, with other police officers? How does he go from that to he is dead on the front lawn, left out there by someone? Who did it? So today, what I did is we went down to Canton. We went to downtown Canton to try to retrace some of the steps of John O'Keefe, of Karen Reed, to try to understand what was going on that night, where they went, and how it could have ended the way it did. I'm here in downtown Canton, which is sort of the focal point for the social life for many of the locals. And that night, that Friday night at about 7:30, John O'Keefe met some buddies down here at C.F. McCarthy's. And they hung out here for a little while. And then at about 9 o'clock, Karen Reed showed up and joined John here. And they stayed for just under 2 hours. At about 10:54, they left McCarthy's, went across the street and down the road to another bar called The Waterfall. The Waterfall is just a short walk from C.F. McCarthy's, and when John and Karen got here, they went inside. And there were a few other groups that were inside, including the Alberts. Brian and Nicole Albert were there with family, celebrating, having a good time. The McCabe's were also there. So John and Karen hung out with them for a while until midnight when the waterfall closed. At that point, the Alberts invited everyone to their house for an after party. So John and Karen left the waterfall, got into Karen's car, and went to the Alberts. So Karen's driving, John's in the passenger seat, and they're on Cedar Crest Road approaching Fairview where the after party is. And as they get to this intersection, there's another car approaching at the same time with Ryan Nagel in it. He flashes, so Karen goes first and makes the right on their way to the home where the party is. Now, the car that flashed its lights also going there, Ryan Nagel, to pick up his sister. So Karen and John stopped the car initially close to the driveway, and Nagel is pulling up behind him. So Karen and John pull up a little bit further and stop just up in this area of the house. And then at that point, there's a conversation between Ryan and his sister. She decides not to go. And then Ryan passes John and Karen in their car and takes off. We've got a great panel of guests tonight. I want to introduce who we have. Joining us remotely tonight, Rusty Haight. He's a director of Collision Safety Institute. He's an accident reconstructionist. Great to have you with us. Our next guest, of course, you recognize him, Kenny Kinsey, Kenny Kinsey & Associates, the star of the Alec Murdaugh trial. I always say that because it's true. He's joining us as well. And joining me here at Blue Ribbon Barbecue, Dr. Priya Banerjee, board-certified forensic pathologist, and Kevin Lanahan, YouTube creator. Yellow Cottage Tales is the name of the program. So thank you, everyone, for joining us. Kevin, let me begin with you. So did I get it right? Did I get it right about who was where and what this was all about?
Absolutely, absolutely.
So they get to the house. How many people do we think are inside? Do we know?
Well, at the time that John and Karen arrived, 11 people.
11, okay.
Now, there were a few people. People have to understand there were kind of two get-togethers here. First, there was Brian Albert Jr.'s had a kind of a birthday get-together there. Probably party is too strong a word. Now, those people were mostly leaving as the after-hours party began.
Okay, excellent. So this is what I want to do, because we have our experts here. I want to get into what really happened here, or what one side is saying happened here, what the other side is saying happened here. One of them's got to be true, I hope, right? So let's begin with how she left the scene. So Karen Reed left by herself. We know that because John O'Keefe's in the snow. We don't know how he ended up in the snow. But there's one of two different ways that have been described as to how Karen Reed left that scene. Let's take a look. When Karen Reed left, witnesses say that she went in the same way and in the same direction she was facing when she pulled up next to the car. So let's do that right now. So when Karen Reed's leaving, she says she does a three-point turn. So I'm going to do that right now. Point one, you make first turn. Then you throw it in reverse. This is the dangerous part. Could she have hit him backing up here? That's not what the prosecution's saying. They say he's going 24 miles an hour. And then she pulls away back towards the way she came from, right to that intersection where she saw the flashing lights. All right, so let's take another look at this three-point turn. Now, this is what no one is saying. Karen Reed said that she did a three-point turn to leave in one of her statements. So could this be the way that John O'Keefe was struck? Accidentally. She didn't realize it. Neither side is claiming that, but I'm putting it out there. Dr. Priya Banerjee, based upon the level of injuries and everything else that we know to this point, does that seem possible to you that a simple three-point turn could have done the damage that ended John O'Keefe's life?
I think you can. I think it's quite a possibility, and obviously we don't have the full constellation of injuries released yet, but we do know that his upper body was unscathed, and somehow he landed on the back of his head, right, hitting the ground. So I think potentially at a slow speed, right, if you have a slight bump, and if he can't catch himself for whatever reason, he could end up falling back. And that actually wouldn't have significant injury on the body, you know, at a lower speed.
Let me ask Rusty Haight about that. Rusty, what are your thoughts? A simple three-point turn, I grew up calling it a K-turn. You do it at a very slow speed. What are your thoughts about that with a car? You've got a backup camera. I don't know if this car has the safety feature that jams you and prevents you from striking something behind you. But what are your thoughts about that?
Well, you can have a short distance across the road, three-point turn kind of thing. But my understanding, she was supposed to have been backing several feet, 25-ish feet or something, and that's not the three-point turn that you demonstrated, and that's not across the road. But let's assume that she's just backing across the width of the road and bumps him and knocks him down. I agree with the doctor that hitting his head on the pavement, you know, could cause a significant injury, but I don't think there would have been an injury from the car in that case. And I understand there's some broken glass, broken taillight. That's a little bit tough to imagine in that scenario as well. There would have had to have been a little bit more speed than I think they could have got in that scenario, the three-point turn kind of thing.
Dr. Kenny Kinsey, what are your thoughts about a simple three-point turn, low speed, causing the type of injuries and damage to the car, the cracked tail light, which is the right rear tail light?
Thank you, Vinny. I have to agree with a little bit of both of my cohorts here. I do agree that I believe these injuries could have been caused in that manner. And I believe it all depends on the victim's center of gravity. If his center of gravity is level with the impact point of that vehicle, then we probably will not have this. But if for whatever reason it is lower and he ends up under that vehicle, I do believe this is possible.
Okay, now I want to get to. Go ahead. Was that you, Rusty?
I didn't say anything. Go ahead.
Okay, I just want to make sure. Okay, so what I wanted to show everyone now is we heard in the opening statement that the prosecution says they have evidence that Karen Reed's car is going in reverse 24 miles an hour for 62 feet. 24 miles an hour, 62 feet. So again, as I was at the scene, I threw it in reverse. I'll show you that, and this is me going in reverse, but I'm not going to be going 24 miles an hour, but I am going about 60 feet. Let's take a look at it. All right, I'm going to back up. I'm going to go between 3 and 4 miles an hour. Okay, so that's about 60 feet. Now, I was going 4 miles an hour, so now we speed it up to 6 times, which would be about 24 miles an hour, if my math is right.
We shouldn't rely on that.
Yeah. let me ask you, as we watch this, and I don't, you know, take what you want from it. Let me ask you, Rusty Haight, about 24 miles an hour in reverse for 60 feet. What questions do you have about that? What would you expect to see if some level of contact was made with someone at that speed?
Well, my understanding is the other difference between that and what you did was there's supposed to be snow on the road. Getting up to 24 and keeping going straight in reverse at 24 miles an hour on a snowy road strikes me as something a little bit on the tough side. But that notwithstanding, the other thing that catches my eye is in some of the literature, there's supposed to be specifically 24.2 miles an hour, which suggests perhaps they have something from the car's event data recorder. But this kind of car requires a pretty good impact to have recorded an event. To record data associated with some sort of impact. And it's tough to imagine that with a pedestrian, with a body, and especially to the back end of the car. So I'm not quite 100% confident on that 24 mile an hour number.
All right, Dr. Kenny Kinsey, I've got something else I want to show you. So I did go to the scene and drive 24 miles an hour, but I drove it straight because I wasn't going to do it going backwards. Let's take a look at that. All right, what I'm going to do is drive 24 miles an hour, just to give you an idea of how fast that is over the course of 60 feet, which isn't that far. Here we go. I'm now going 26 miles an hour, but it took me a while to get that fast. Okay, Now, we're going to show you the video in reverse. Let's take a look. Again, so we can see what 24 miles an hour looks like. So let me ask you, Dr. Kenny Kinsey, 24 miles an hour in reverse, what would you expect to see at the scene? Is this consistent? Is this plausible?
Vinny, once again, I've got to say that it is possible with a little caveat. It's going to depend on the victim's position, and it's certainly going to depend on when the driver of that vehicle applied brakes and changed the momentum. Just think underneath that vehicle, if that center of gravity of that victim is lower than the midpoint of that vehicle or the area of impact, then he's got only one direction to go, and that's under the vehicle. But I think it'll go back to the injuries and the type of injuries, and if they can't replicate and prove what under that vehicle carriage, if it's not the bumper, as Rusty said, or it's not enough impact for the lens cover to cause that injury, if they can't attribute it to something under that carriage, then I see it being a problem for the prosecution.
Can I ask a question?
Go ahead, Dr. Priya.
Yeah. Gentlemen, I have a question about, would you expect airbag deployment at the higher speed that's quoted?
Airbags are designed for frontal impacts. There's not going to be any airbags deployed in a rear ender or the impact to the back of a car ever. The only time that would happen is on a very small number of cars that have rear window airbags, and that's mostly overseas.
Okay, thank you.
Rusty, let me ask you a follow-up question about the information that you get from the car itself. What I don't know, what do they record? I just presume they record everything we do.
No, it's not a flight data recorder like in an airplane, you know, the black box sort of thing. It's what's called an event data recorder. So it's very limited. It only records specific data elements in specific severity crashes. So she would have had to have had what's called a change of speed or a delta V of at least 5 miles an hour, 8 kilometers an hour in about 0.15 seconds to cause an event to be recorded. And that's very tough. Hitting a pedestrian, hitting a body. The mass difference between the car and the body is probably not going to allow for that, especially in a rear end crash. I can't see that any kind of event data would have been recorded as a function of her hitting a body, put his head, let's say, near the tailgate on that SUV. It's just not going to happen. I just don't see how it would be a related event.
Dr. Kenny Kinsey, as this trial progresses, and it's going to be over the course of weeks, what type of evidence, what do you think will be significant in helping this jury figure out what happened there? And what's going to help the expert describe to the jury what they believe happened here?
Benny, it's as easy, and we like to make it complicated, but it's as easy as comparing a known and an unknown. And if they can attribute those injuries to something on or under that vehicle or something on the road or street in the vicinity of that victim, then I believe they're going to have an easier time. But as I've said since the beginning, since those photos were released or leaked out, if they can't attribute something to the patterns on those injuries, I see an issue. I believe cause and manner have to be proven before they can ever attack intent. And hopefully they've got it and they're just holding it in tight like most prosecutors do.
All right. Kevin, I know you put together the animation. Mm-hmm. We're gonna roll that right now and just describe what it's based upon, how you came to
I'm sorry. Yeah, I struggled all summer trying to make sense, like all of us here, of the injuries combined, what we know about the injuries, combined with the damage to the vehicle, right? So John is found 6 to 12 feet on the lawn. Next to him with the grass where there's no snow is accumulated, there are cocktail pieces. And we're told that the only injuries below his neck were possibly traumatic injury to the pancreas. We do also know he was knocked out of a shoe. And yet there was also damage to the car. There was DNA and a hair found on the car, and the taillight is cracked. So I really struggled to try to understand how a vehicle could make that head wound and not damage his torso.
And not damage his torso. So
this is an attempt at that.
Right.
This was just an attempt.
He left the drink in the street, which,
yeah,
I get it. All right. I want to thank Rusty Haight and Dr. Kenneth Kinsey. Thank you so much for your insight and your expertise. We appreciate it. And I guarantee we'll be calling you back again and again as this trial progresses. Thank you so much to both of you.
Thank you.
And thanks to Dr. Priya Banerjee. Great to see you. Kevin's going to stay with us. When we come back, we're going to talk about the Google search. Hose long to die in the cold. Plus, coming up next hour. In Boise, Idaho, the doomsday prophet Chad Daybell on trial and facing the death penalty. We are live from Boise with all the big moments.
What did you determine her manner of death to be?
We determined her manner of death to be homicide, and it means to us that another person was involved in that person's death. It does not imply intent, although it does not exclude it either.
This is an innocent woman. She didn't do it.
It's a controversial case that's divided a community.
Karen Reed is accused of murdering her police officer boyfriend.
Prosecutors say she ran him over on purpose and left him to die in the cold.
But Reed claims that she's being framed.
It smells suspicious.
After years of legal fireworks, will the truth finally be revealed?
The end game is to figure out who killed John O'Keefe and hold these people responsible.
The Killer or Cover-Up Murder Trial. Live coverage weekday mornings, only on Court TV.
Welcome back. We're live at Blue Ribbon Barbecue here in downtown Dedham. But what you're looking at there, if you look at this sign, to me, this is the issue that really kick-started the entire Free Karen Reed movement. The hose long to die in the cold. This is the Google search. When was this search done? Was it done at 2:27 a.m. by Jennifer McCabe? If so, Karen Reed's going to walk out of that courtroom. If 12 jurors believe that that's when the search was done, this case is over. Because there's no reason for anyone to believe that Karen Reed's involved if someone else at 2:27 is Googling how long to die in the cold. Like, why would you do that? No one knows that he's there. His body hasn't been discovered yet, unless someone was going to put him there or had put him there. That's why it's so significant. Now, the Commonwealth, the prosecution in this case, has a completely different view of this Google search. And it all comes down to the timing of it. When was it done? Why was it done? So let's begin by listening to the opening statement from the prosecutor addressing this issue, which again is the issue that really started the Free Karen Reed movement.
At approximately 6:23, 6:24 a.m., during a conversation with the defendant asks Mrs. McCabe to look up on her phone how long someone has to be out in the cold to die from hypothermia, or something to that effect. And you'll hear some dispute as to when that search was made. You'll hear testimony from 3 different forensic extraction experts, Mr. Nicholas Carino, Ms. Jessica Hyde, and Mr. Ian Whiffen, who you'll hear about a lot of these things called extraction reports from cell phones. And the extraction reports are done with a program called Celebrate. And Mr. Whiffen is someone who writes that software for Celebrate. I anticipate you'll hear from each of their testimonies that Google search that was done on Ms. McCabe's phone was done at the same time frame that she indicates the defendant requested her to do it, and that at 6:23 and 6:24 in the morning.
So the prosecution version is very clear. What they're saying happened here is that Karen Reed arrives on the scene, finds John O'Keefe, and then is, quick, somebody Google, how long does it take to die in the cold? In the moment of discovering his body. But again, they believe, the supporters believe it was done at 2:27. So let me bring in our guest. Still with us, Kevin Lanahan, Yellow Cottage Tales, YouTube creator. And now joining us, again, Nick Rocco, Karen Reed supporter / expert. Okay. Right. All right. So tell me, does that make sense to you that Karen Reed would arrive there. Her boyfriend is in the snow, and she's in a panicking. How long? Somebody asked me, how long does it take? Because she knows what time she dropped him off.
Right. But first off, nobody is denying that Jennifer McCabe Googled it at 6:24. But she also Googled it at 2:27 a.m. as well. Now, why would Karen Reed ask Jennifer McCabe at 6:24 to Google how long to die in the snow when she's surrounded by police officers and medical professionals? Why Jennifer McCabe? Why her? I would ask an ambulance person or a cop, how long does it take to die in the cold if you're going to ask somebody that? It doesn't make sense why Jennifer McCabe would be the person. And to make it clear, Karen Reed did not ask Jennifer McCabe to Google that for her.
So, Kevin, does it make sense to you? Does the evidence make sense to you that, hey, she arrives on the scene, there's 3 women, they show up, it's a panic situation, and she's looking for information because John is lying in the cold in the snow?
Well, I'm interested to see if there's going to be a witness, one of the firefighters or the police that heard that. I don't know if that's the case or not, and we're going to see. But it also doesn't make really sense to me that the idea that she was Googling that at 6:24 in order to delete somehow in some weird way the fact that she had Googled it at 2:27. Why would she be thinking that at 6:24? Oh my God, I better delete my search at 2:27. Not to mention the fact that the idea is really kind of absurd if you think about it, just leaving aside the experts for now. But they've sent Jen McCabe home. This is the defense's theory now, that John is still alive, clinging to life inside the house, and their plan is to drop him off outside in the lawn so he can die in the cold. And they send Jen McCabe home knowing this, and she just casually gets home, and her heart rate shows it hasn't changed at all. There's no elevation. It's completely normal. And yet she's searching this. This guy is her friend, and she's like a surrogate mother to his nephew who he's raising. It's really an absurd theory.
But you got to realize the timeline, okay? 2:12 in the morning, she arrives at her house after she left 34 Fairview Road. 2:23, she unlocks her cell phone. 2:25 in the morning, she sends 2 text messages. At 2:26 a.m., she deletes 2 screenshots, and at 2:27 a.m., she Google searches how long to die in cold. And around 2:30 and 3 in the morning, that's when Lucky the plow driver was heading down 34 Fairview Road to plow the road, and there was a Ford Edge parked exactly where John's body was found at 6 a.m. So either that person driving the Ford Edge was there for a shield from the cameras, or he didn't see John's body there.
All right, let's do this. Let's take a listen to the defense, because they have a completely different version. Sounds a lot like what Nick just told us. Let's watch.
Karen didn't know that Jennifer McCabe settled in at 2:27 in the morning on January 29th, 2022, and typed a Google search that she would later delete. 2:27 in the morning was over 3 hours before John O'Keefe's body was found on Brian Albert's lawn. 2:27 was over 3 hours before anyone knew or suspected that John O'Keefe was missing or hurt or in trouble. And at 2:27 in the morning, you will learn that with no one watching her, thinking she was alone with her thoughts, and not worrying that anyone would know what she was doing, Jennifer McCabe typed in the following Google search: how long to die in the cold. Now, she misspelled the first word, so the actual search was how long to die in the cold, but you'll get the point. You will ask yourself, why would somebody Google how long does it take for someone to die in the cold, unless that person knew someone who either was in that situation or would be in that situation. The Commonwealth will try to dispute the timing of that Google search. They'll try to claim that there were only 2 Google searches at 6:23 and 6:24 a.m. after John's body was found. But one problem for the Commonwealth will be that we have retained Richard Green, one of the leading computer forensic experts in the country. Rick Green has forensically analyzed Jennifer McCabe's phone, both manually and using every appropriate type of computer software to solve this issue. Rick Green will confirm for you that Jennifer McCabe did indeed make that search at 2:27 a.m. And another problem for the Commonwealth is that you will hear and see other evidence that will confirm that Jennifer McCabe is lying when she denies making that Google search at 2:27 a.m.
All right, Kevin, let me ask you, is there anything that he's saying there that doesn't make sense to you?
Well, first of all, the state has truly good experts here, elite experts in Jessica Hyde and also Ian Whiffen, who developed the Celebrate software. They're going to dispute any of these deletions. So these deletions, what we call deletions, are not necessarily something that's done by a human being, but it's files moving around. So a file moves from one folder to another, and then when you print the report, which the defense's expert, Rich Green, printed up, he says, these are deletions. But that's really just something that's going on invisible within our phones all the time. It's not necessary. It doesn't mean that somebody was actually deleting information. That's what the state's going to say.
But at 624, as we know, it comes up as a recent search. So she searched it at 624, but it was done recently at 227 as well.
Well, again, I'm not a forensic data person, and we've spent way too much time looking at this, right? So what you're going to hear is the experts actually speak in the trial, right? But at this point, it's disputed, and so you have to decide until you hear that what makes the most sense. But to me, it doesn't really. The idea of planning to leave this guy alive on your own lawn is just a crazy plan.
Well, and obviously there's going to be experts from both sides, and the jury will get to weigh their testimony. But what I've found through the years of covering cases where there's a battle of the experts, the jury pulls back from the experts and then looks at the rest of the evidence and what makes the most sense to them. So we'll see. And obviously, it's different for you two guys. It's different for a lot of folks. Maybe 12 will agree, maybe they won't, but that's part of this case. When we come back, something else they may not agree about: the broken tail light.
You never saw or otherwise observed or located a single piece of taillight material, did you?
No. Did you see 45 pieces of bright red, black, and clear plastic pieces scattered all over the scene?
I did not.
So when was the tail light broken, and when were the pieces end up? When were they placed, or when did they fall off the car? Where were they found? Did someone put them there? Well, the defense is saying they're planted. Prosecution is saying, no, this is a vehicular homicide. It's a murder. It's done on purpose, and it's at the time of impact. Yet the first two responding officers didn't see any there. Was it their job to look for it? Would it have been obvious? There's a snowstorm. These are all the questions that are making this much more complicated than it usually is. Now, we do know that the taillight was cracked. Now, prosecutors are saying it's cracked because of the impact, but the defense has this video of Karen Reed the following morning backing out and perhaps striking John O'Keefe's car with the same tail light that the prosecution says was broken by John O'Keefe. Like, what are the odds of that? Making things even more complicated and more difficult, by the way, for prosecutors. So the prosecutor obviously dealt with this in his opening statement, talking about the broken tail light. So let's take a listen.
You'll hear testimony, as I said, from a number of different troopers, as well as from a number of different analysts from different labs. Included within that is Ms. Maureen Hartnett, who collected items from the vehicle, defendant's vehicle, including the taillights, sort of housing from that vehicle, pieces of the taillight that were discovered in sort of the front grass and front street area. There is a specialized team called CERT team. You'll hear from Lieutenant Kevin O'Hara, who has a supervisory role in relation to that. And then later on that day of the 29th, he, along with Lieutenant Tully and a number of different members from his CERT team, were searching for evidence within the mounds of snow in front of that house, as the blizzard is still ongoing at this point through sort of the afternoon hours. Among the items that they locate is a sneaker. When Mr. O'Keefe is transported to the hospital, he's found to only have one sneaker on his feet. They find the other sneaker in that area of the body. They find various pieces of taillight. And as is wont to do, over the course of the following days, the temperatures rise, there's a rainstorm that comes in, and the snow melts. Over those successive days, there are additional pieces of taillights that are eventually discovered in that area of the front lawn in the street. You'll hear her testimony in regard to pieces of red and clear plastic that were microscopic in size that were found within Mr. O'Keefe's clothing, consistent, in her opinion, I anticipate she'll testify, with the same pieces of plastic contained within the defendant's taillight.
Now, in most cases, evidence like this, it's game over very quickly, right? You've got the broken taillight at the scene. You've got pieces of it on the victim. 2 + 2 = 4. So what's going on here? Well, do you remember the case of O.J. Simpson? Same thing, the bloody glove, you know, and somehow he wasn't convicted because in that case, the defense argued that Furman framed O.J. Simpson, that they planted evidence. Same thing is happening in this case. Let's bring back in our guest, Nick Rocco, Karen Reed supporter and expert, Kevin Lenahan, Yellow College Tales, YouTube creator. So why isn't that? Why doesn't that move you? Why doesn't that convince you that it happened there?
Because
the broken taillight.
You see you see Karen backed out of the driveway, hits John's car. When she leaves that driveway, she steps on her brake. The thing lights up redder than Rudolph's nose, okay?
Okay, we're watching it now.
You'll see it here. She steps on the brake, okay? And then also when she leaves the driveway as well, the thing lights up red. Now, later on in the day, when they go to Dighton and they end up towing her vehicle, which was at 4:17 p.m., the state trooper, Michael Proctor, in his report, had lied and said it was towed after 5 o'clock, meaning he couldn't get that vehicle back to Canton in time to plant evidence. But now we know that that vehicle arrived at Canton PD at 5:08, which then we find out 42 minutes is missing from that footage, and all of a sudden, taillights found on the scene at 6 p.m. You have a baseball-sized red piece and 2 clear pieces. After 12 hours of a blizzard, they found it on top of the snow. Didn't happen.
Okay, let's do this. Let's take a listen to the defense, David Unetti, giving their take on this important, critical broken taillight evidence.
During that thorough search of Brian Albert's front lawn, the number of pieces of taillight that were found by a minimum of 4 officers looking for evidence was 0. It was only later in the day when the snow was really starting to accumulate that the police miraculously started to find pieces of taillight on the property. The police only started to find pieces of taillight after Michael Proctor had seized Karen Reed's car. There is no competent evidence that Karen Reed's taillight shattered at Brian Albert's property in the early morning hours of January 29th, 2022. To the contrary, you'll learn that when Karen left John at Brian Albert's house, she drove back to John's house on Meadows Ave across town in Canton. So she got back into her Lexus and she backed up out of the garage to leave the driveway. And when she did, the right rear taillight of her Lexus struck John's parked vehicle in the driveway and her taillight cracked. That was the same taillight that the prosecution now claims was broken outside the Albert residence hours earlier at 12:30 a.m. But we have video evidence that the taillight was actually broken at 5 a.m., many hours after the prosecution needs that taillight to have been broken.
All right, Kevin, why didn't they find this stuff? Why did it take so long to find these broken taillight pieces?
It's an essential question, and this is a part of the defense's theory that's easily debunked. Okay, so what initially happens is John is struck. He's knocked 6 to 12 feet onto the lawn. There's no snow at that time. It lights slightly snowing during the course of the night. The snow doesn't accumulate around him because of his body warmth, okay? Then sometime, say around 5 o'clock in the morning, by then there's an inch or 2 of snow, and the plowman, Lucky Laughran, comes down and plows it. Now, even though that's not a lot of snow, it's enough to make a plow bank, and you can see it in the dash cam video that maybe it's about 16 inches by 16 inches. Okay, so later on, when the city police, the Canton police, are looking, they're only looking around where John's body is. So they're able to see the cocktail glass pieces because that's in the grass there. But the taillight pieces are on the street and in the curb area. And they're buried underneath that plow bank. And
underneath the snow,
that's
been placed there by the snow plows that have come through.
Yes, and there's no way, every city knows in this state that except for the 3 big cities, any kind of suspicious death will automatically go to the state police. And so those cops knew that morning, and they were never going to take a shovel to a state police crime scene. So they didn't dig through that plow bank at all, and it wasn't, so those pieces weren't found, and it was maybe one substantial sized piece, and the rest, they're making a point of saying there were 45 pieces, but most of them were just tiny little pieces, you know.
So how was it found on top of the snow?
It was not found on top of the snow. You can see the shovel marks there. It was dug out, and that's just one more trick by this PR campaign that's run by Karen Reed, where they put out this piece and they show it makes it seem like it's found sitting on top of the snow. It was dug out, and you're going to hear the troopers testify that.
Well, which trooper? Michael Proctor, the one that
Michael
has been
Proctor was
lying
not
through
there.
this whole investigation?
Michael Proctor was not there at that scene.
Let me play one more piece of David Unetti's opening statement, because I think this is one part that has a lot of people scratching their heads. Let's take a look.
A good week after John O'Keefe's death, Canton Police Chief Kenneth Berkowitz, an older officer on the brink of retirement with probably not the best eyesight, someone he supposedly was driving, happened to be driving past Brian Albert's house. And by the way, Brian Albert is someone with whom Chief Berkowitz is also good friends. And this older man allegedly spotted yet another piece of taillight from his moving vehicle. This was yet another piece of taillight that was somehow missed by the trained specialists who had previously and thoroughly searched the property.
Okay, the police chief driving by. Are you bothered by that?
It's a little bit odd, but you have to also understand that there was, if you look at the weather, there was a January thaw then, so the snow melted quite a bit during the week, and the deputy police chief lives across the street. You know, why was this guy inserting himself? I don't know, but that wasn't even essential evidence anyways to the case.
I'll give you 5 seconds, final word.
This is the same former chief of police that was found in the Canton Police Department garage with Brian Higgins. Unbeknownst to anybody else, they were in there, they know what they did. And as far as Karen Reed's PR team, you know, I look at documents. I don't get my information from the Alberts and the McCabe's like you do. So, you know, let's focus on the case.
Big thanks to Nick Rocco, Kevin Lanahan. Thanks for being on. When we come back, folks,